Hey everybody, Jimmy Smith. I'm back. I was going on vacation. That's why I haven't posted a video in a couple weeks. I was up in the Sequoias, Central California, where I grew up until I was 9 years old. And I barely had access to any internet at all. Barely had cell phone reception, let alone enough to record a movie and have it edited and all that stuff. So I've been off for a couple weeks, but I'm back. Missed you guys. Hope you missed me too, at least a little bit. Show the love, right? Follow, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Give me a comment. Let me know what you think. UFC on ESPN 59. Nunes versus Cortez is where I'm starting back. Review of that one. We learned something in every single fight here, either about the fighters or the division or something like that. So let's dive right into it. Abdul Razak Alhassan versus Cody Brundage. This stopped with a no contest because strikes to the back of the head 37 seconds in. So not a lot to take away from this one other than when a fighter, in this case Cody Brundage, starts off with kind of this awkward desperation takedown, diving in these weird positions, and the opponent sprawls well, which was Alhassan in this case, that's a tough start. There's another example of this on the card of somebody starting off some awkward takedowns. Man, they cost a lot of energy. As soon as Brundage went for that kind of reaching takedown and ends up scrambling, and he's getting hit on the side of the head, and then, of course, the back of the head, which ended up stopping the fight. I thought, man, he's really in trouble. Even if he gets through this, that costs a lot of gas really, really early. If you're going to commit to a takedown like that, you got to go for it. Or you have to be Colby Covington, who tends to dive for a lot of reaching takedowns, but he's got an endless gas tank. He doesn't care. He can keep going and going and going. Very important. You go through a lot of gas attempting an offensive move like that early in a fight. So if you've been able to keep those strikes legal to the side of the head instead of the back of the head, the fight would have been over, I think, in round number one for Alhassan. Unfortunately, he messed up, hit the back of the head, couldn't continue. It's a no contest, 37 seconds into round number one. So, Julian Rosa, Christian Rodriguez, guillotine choke, 10 seconds left to go in round number one. So, 4:49 of round number one. Julian Rosa gets the guillotine. Christian Rodriguez looked good up to that point. His strikes were a little bit sharper. One thing about Julian Rosa is he's awkwardly built. He's real tall, kind of lanky and rangy. If you can get inside of that and become a combination puncher inside of those long limbs, you can have a lot of success. And that's essentially what Christian Rodriguez did the entire time. He was tight with the strikes. He was inside the long tools, meaning the lead jab and the kicks. Looked really good, looked really sharp, and can't take your eye off the ball for a second. Got a takedown, ended up in the guard, good reach around the head, and then guillotine for Julian Rosa in that one. So Rosa gets the finish in round number one. What I take away from it is Christian Rodriguez looked good. It's unfortunate that he wasn't able to keep the pressure going throughout the fight because it's such a stacked division, featherweight right now. Entertaining, exciting, probably better than it's ever been, but the idea that it's wide open, right? A lot of people can climb the ladder pretty easily now that we have a new champion. But Christian Rodriguez just couldn't get it done at against Julian Rosa, who's a well-tested mid-level guy. Got to beat those guys, and he didn't. He takes a pretty substantial step back with this loss. And Julian Rosa, of course, guys built like him are just dangerous with the guillotines. Long arms, long legs, they wrap it up, you're in deep trouble. And so you always have to watch out for that when we take on a guy like that. So Christian Rodriguez, man, I really see the potential. Almost every time he fights, I see the potential. And obviously the big upset over Raul Rosas Jr., I know that was at 35, but, was doing good things. That snapped a four-fight win streak. If he had beaten Julian Rosa, that's 5. It really does something great for him. And big step back, which sucks because I think he's a talented fighter. Gabriel Bonfiglio versus Lusa, unanimous decision for Bonfiglio. This is another one where Lusa went for, as I said earlier, there was another one on the card, went for a takedown early, ended up in these clinch positions that just cost you a ton of gas early. And the problem with Lusa's style, it wasn't a blowout by any stretch of the imagination, is the rest of the time on the feet. Drew Dober fights like this, and we'll discuss that in a minute, kind of tight up here. So as Lusa is fighting, he's real tight, and he's not flowing and snapping. And the problem is, that takes a lot of energy to stay kind of that tight. He's a real muscular guy. He's really big up in the shoulders and chest. And after he went for the takedowns, something very, very interesting that was told to me by Showtime Sean Porter, great boxer. If you remember him, I worked for Pro Box TV. We were doing something, breaking down a fight. No, we were in D.C. We were calling the Lamont Roach Jr. fight. And Lamont Roach Jr. was going for the knockout. And then I said, hey, does he want to switch to a boxing type situation? And he tried to get the knockout, couldn't really get it. Maybe box a little bit more. And he goes, a lot of times when you hit hard and go for something big early, you kind of tighten up, and it can be hard to snap again and get loose and start boxing again because you've been loading up your punches. And so it's hard to kind of unload and relax and start boxing again. You find that you can't, or that you're kind of out of energy. You're a little too tight to do that stuff. Angelus is that guy where he started with a takedown, ended up in the clinch, they're up against the fence, using a lot of energy, and when they broke off and started boxing, he's still kind of in that tight kind of grappling mode. And Bonfim's punches were looser and snap better, and he just got outboxed for the rest of the fight. Got some takedowns, briefly, was on top, but couldn't do enough with it. And I saw that kind of tightness and that he looked a little too stiff on the feet. And Bonfim, real nice, real loose, tall, so it's hard for Angelus. I noticed he was falling short with a lot of punches. So it was hard to Angelus to kind of find the range when he's still kind of stiff. You got to be explosive to get in and out like that. And he didn't have that physical ability after that early takedown attempt. And that's just his style. It's just how the guy fights. But Bonfim was just better on the feet, looser, more accurate, more powerful. Wasn't using a lot of energy. Dude, that is it's an impressive run this guy's been on so far after coming up from Contender Series. One loss in 4 fights. He's 3-1 in his UFC career. Pretty impressive so far. I thought he looked good in this one. Good bounce back off the Nicholas Dalby loss. So, who else we got? Jean Silva versus Drew Dober. Another one where Drew Dober, who, knockout record at lightweight, that's great. I want to explain something very, very quickly that I've talked about before. Numbers records always, unless it's record, number of title fights or some record at the elite level, just the most something. I always go, well, did you do it against the best guys? The problem with having, which is an impressive record, having the most knockouts at lightweight, that's great. But if you look at Drew Dober's record, never fought for a title, never came close to fighting for a title, and hasn't fought a lot of elite guys. He fought some really tough mid-level guys, but those record numbers, right? When you look at Neil Magny, for example. Neil Magny holds almost every numbers record at 170 pounds. He's never fought for a title, never come close to fighting for a title. He's just been in it a long time. And so I've talked about this before with Jim Miller. Does Jim Miller belong in the Hall of Fame because he just has the most fights? Well, if the UFC gives you the right guys, you can be there forever. And if the UFC gives you the right guys, you can get a ton of knockouts. It's getting up to the elite level and getting those knockouts and getting those finishes and getting whatever it is. Numbers at the elite level. Drew Dober has numbers of knockouts. He doesn't have them at the elite level. And in this fight, you saw why. Once again, tight, not the most versatile guy in the world. He hits really hard, but against Silva, who was, once again, looser. His punches were snapping better. Footwork was enough to get him in and out, and, decent head movement. He was a little bit lighter on his feet. Drew Dober got seriously cut, but he was being outstruck even before the cut. Stopped on a cut, by the way, is how this one ended. But the idea that he was getting tuned up anyway, right? It was a minute 28 in round number 3 that they checked the cut out, and it looked like he got hit with an axe. I knew immediately they were going to stop this one. But even without the cut, it wasn't one of those where, God, a guy's just dominating, but he took a bad elbow and he's got a cut, and no, he was getting tuned up. So that cut was just a result of getting hit a lot, right? And you see why Drew Dober has the record, but isn't up amongst the elite at 55. He doesn't have all those skills that are necessary to get to the top of a really, really tough division. And so he's good enough to constantly get knockouts as long as he's in the mid-level, which is where he is and where he's probably always going to be. But you saw everything on display in this fight. You're like, yeah, he's got power. But if you add a few things to the other guy's game, right, some good footwork, nice combination on punches, some head movement, all that stuff goes away, right? Elite guys get finishes against other elite guys. And so we kind of saw that with that's kind of what we saw with this fight between Jean Silva and Drew Dober, that a striker that is versatile and knows what he's doing can flummox Drew Dober pretty well. And so ended up being a doctor stoppage, 128 in round number 3. Jean Silva, hey man, dude's really tough. 14-2. Hasn't lost in the UFC yet, just getting started in his career. This was his toughest opponent by far, and I thought he passed with flying colors in this fight. So 3-0 in the UFC, the dude looks good. Looks really good. So we'll see. Once again, I talk about how difficult this division is. So one good or even great performance isn't going to do it for you. You got to really perform for a long time. We'll see if he's that guy, because it's going to be a step up after Drew Dober. Muslim Salikov versus Santiago Ponzinibbio. It hurts every time I watch Santiago Ponzinibbio fight, and I'll explain why. I called his fight against Neil Magny in Argentina. That was November 2018. It's one of the last ones I called out there at the UFC. And he destroyed Neil Magny. Like, mauled him to the point where I went, God, they got to stop this thing. This is bad. His corner should step in and do something. Beat the dog piss out of Neil Magny. Knee injury, time off. It took about 2 years off, a little more than 2 years. Came back against Li Jinglong. Has gone since then 2-5 since coming back in those 7 fights. Has not been the same guy. Period. End of sentence. So it just hasn't been the same. And it could be the injury, sure. It could be, I was talking to Eve Edwards about this on my SiriusXM show, and he said something very interesting. He goes, dude, 2 years, division really advances. And if you're not around and you're not advancing, division just moves past you. You just aren't capable of catching up at that point. So it could be leftovers from the knee. It could be he lost some explosiveness. I know that happens with some knee injuries when you come back. Hasn't been the same guy. And in this case, Salikov outworked him a bit. It was a close fight. I can easily see giving it to Ponzinibbio. But one of the things is he's kind of point fighting now. You saw it in the Salikov fight. He was in it, but he's kind of on the outside. He's picking his shots. Dude, he used to be a devastating power guy, and he's not anymore. And he's one of those guys, I don't think he functions that well without his power. I think the time off and maybe the injury itself cost him some power. And he's never been the kind of guy who's, the most accurate technician in the world. So he can't really make up for it without that power to help him out. And it looks like that is gone. And so to me, that's a huge part of what's missing. Because, he has 1 knockout since coming out. There's 2 wins, one of them by knockout, which was Morano. He's going the distance a lot. So he's almost point fighting and gets out point fought. And because that's not really his style. So disappointing performance again against Muslim Salikov. He just isn't the guy he was. It wouldn't surprise me if he got cut at some point. Sucks. Good one for Muslim Salikov. Obviously, tough welterweight. I do worry that age 40, that he is, 2-3 in his last 5. It's good. It's good to right the ship a bit, but can he get some damage done with what is left of his career? I didn't see anything extraordinary in the guy. He could pick the bones of kind of a used up Santiago Ponzinibbio, but I don't know what he does against elite welterweights. That's the problem. So, speaking of elite, Rose Namajunas, Tracy Cortez. Rose Namajunas looked a level better than Tracy Cortez. There you go. Better striker, good angles, got the takedown, got mount, excellent grappling. She just did everything better than Tracy Cortez. She was the better fighter. It's very, very simple. The difficulty is when you change weight classes. The one thing that I've said that is difficult to change weight classes with, if you're a power striker, it is difficult to change weight classes. Why? Because knocking out a 115-pounder is very different than knocking out a 125-pounder. It's very, very different. And you may hit the same kind of strike, and it just doesn't have the same impact. And if you rely on that, it's not going to work for you anymore. Rose, although she got knockouts at 115, she wasn't what I call a knockout striker. She wasn't a power puncher. She wasn't one of those people who needs to get you out of there to win. She could outpoint you. Right? She's well-rounded. She has good accuracy. She throws good combinations. She has versatile strikes, blah, 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 blah. She has a lot that translates well between 115 and 125, where she can move up 10 pounds. She never needed to knock you out anyway, so she can kind of outwork you at 25. Great. So she still has the potential to do well at 125, and we saw that in this fight. The issue I have, the big question, is Rose Namajunas elite? She was number 6. She beat up number 11. You're kind of supposed to beat somebody who's number 11 if you're number 6. The elite question, is she elite at 125? Well, you could argue that at number 6, she is elite, right? She can, top 6 is elite. It's the best in the division. Can she win a title again? When I look at Alexa Grasso, Valentina Shevchenko, Manon Fiorot, Erin Blanchfield, Macy Barber, Jessica Andrade, those are the fighters in front of her. Obviously, she hasn't won over Jessica Andrade. She might be able to repeat that. Those top 4 are monstrous. They are very, very good. They're very, very well-rounded. They can do a lot. They're naturally bigger than Rose. It's going to be tough for her to beat any of those top 4. That's going to be tough. I'm not saying she can't do it. She might be able to do it. Of course, she has a loss, of course, to Fiorot in her debut at 125. I think she's more confident now. She's filled out a little bit. So she'll probably do better than she did last time out. But that top 4 is really good. It's not an insult to Jessica Andrade that, I don't think she becomes champion again unless once again, she's able to leapfrog up and some fight falls through. She gets a title shot. She can always win. She's a champion. She knows how to do it. The one thing missing is the mental consistency for Rose Namajunas. And we've seen just some up and down fights from her. A big red flag to me is always when a fighter loses the title and they're happy about it. I'm glad that kind of weights off my shoulders. You usually don't see all-time great champions that are like, oh, I'm glad I'm not champion anymore. They hate losing. They hate it. Now, you don't want to fall apart when you lose, but you don't be like, oh, man, it's much better this way. Whenever anybody says that, man, I'm much happier not being champion. I go, ugh, it's just a red flag to me. That mentally, you don't really want to be there. And if you don't really want to be there, can you really climb the mountain to get back there? Now, she did. She did. When she initially lost her title to Andrade, she came back and won the title again. That was at 115. Can she do it at 125? Well, you have the Carlos Esparza fight that was just bizarrely terrible. She has a little bit of tendency to kind of fall back sometimes. And one of the missing things not enough people talk about is consistency. You have to be really good every single time to be a champion and maintain that championship and be a legend, whatever it is. You got to be consistent. And that climb up to the top at 125, if she's forced to make it, meaning she doesn't get there's an injury and she slides in and kind of skips the top 4, can she have at least 2 consistently great performances in a row? Now, she just had one, so it would have to be 3. Can she do that? Can she have 3 really great performances in a row against really great talent? It would be a credit to her if she can do it, and it would make her one of the greatest female mixed martial artists of all time if she could do it. Because it would be really tough, but I didn't see anything in this fight. I didn't see any glaring weaknesses. I didn't see any problem with her cardio, with her gas. She paced herself well. I thought she took it real easy in rounds 4 and 5. She had it in the bag. That's what a lot of great champions do. They, Jose Aldo known for that, GSP known for that. When they have it in the bag, they're not going to spend more energy than they have to. She fought smart, so she has the IQ, she has the technique, she has the versatility. But she's going to have to string together some really good performances to become champ at 125. But good start. All right. I'll see you guys soon. Like, subscribe, give me a comment. Miss you guys.